Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jay, and I'm a naval historian. And this week we're going to conclude this kind of super series going over the three of the major battles of the Pacific War. And this week is the third and final episode regarding the battles that occurred at Leyte Gulf. So these again, I do recommend just especially with the events. The main event we're covering today, the Battle of Samar, but in general, the entire Battle of Leyte Gulf, in addition to Samuel Morrison's volume on that from his series on naval operations during the Second World War. Also, the last stand of the Tin Can Sailor by James Hornfisher, very, very highly recommended, especially since it really goes into the main event that we'll be discovering going over today, namely the Battle of Samar. Just as we recall, the Japanese had divided their forces into three main groups. The northern group, consisting of carriers, which were a decoy group, which on the morning of October 25th, 1944, Halsey's Third Fleet was in pursuit and was going and engaged in, and we'll cover that toward the end of the episode. But there was also the Southern Group, which, as I explained last week, was destroyed by the Seventh Fleet's Jesse Ordendorf's old battleships, five of which were damaged and or sunk at Pearl Harbor, but have since been refitted. But today we'll cover the largest group, and that was of the Japanese, and that was the Center Group. So when we left off, they had been the previous day, on October 25th, 1944, they had been involved in the Battle of Engano Strait, in which the large super battleship Musashi took 20 plus hits to her and went under that day. So as a result, the Japanese Admiral Kurita made the decision to turn around and basically feint a retreat. Mainly to get space between him and the American carrier fleet, as well as give his fleet a chance to do some damage control and recover. About 7 o'clock on the evening of the 24th, Kurita redirected his ships down the Sabellian Sea toward the San Bernardino Strait at best possible speed, which meant on the morning of October 25th, 1944, they had passed through the San Bernardino Strait, and it was just a straight path toward the northernmost of the escort carrier groups that were supporting the landing on Leyte. These escort carriers were basically Liberty ships with a flight deck parked on top of them. They weren't very fast. They probably did at best 20 knots. They were also carried at most 2 squadrons of aircraft, so 28 planes. And there were also older design planes such as F-4F Wildcats and Dauntless SBD dive bombers, which were fine for supporting land operations, but it was not the type of aircraft you would need for a fleet engagement. Additionally, they were escorted by destroyers and destroyer escorts. There was no cruisers or battleships with these groups, and so it should have been a cakewalk for the Center Fleet. Now, that's the problem, though. It should have been a cakewalk, and one should never assume anything. As what happened was, the center force ran into task group 77.4.3, also known as Taffy 3, led by Rear Admiral Clifton Ziggy Spragg. No relation to any other Spraggs that were involved in the war, as he was a very capable commander on his own. And as soon as the center force started attacking what they thought was the main fleet, Kurita assumed that the decoy plan with the northern force didn't work. He thought it was part of Halsey's Third Fleet. So he pretty much ordered a general attack. Now, that was a mistake because what happened was the Americans by this time has seen it, and the their first instinct, the Americans, was to, when USS Johnston, was to just go full bore at the nearest Japanese heavy cruiser, which was Kumano, and uh, sent out a spread of torpedoes against her, which actually some of them did hit and damage this. Sprague saw this and pretty much gave the order for all the vessels of destroyers and destroyer escorts on his command to just start going at it. And there's actually, thankfully, videos or photos of that from the battle. As you can see here, a couple of the destroyers were making pretty much going full bore at it, just making smoke, sending out as much fire as they could. Meanwhile, not in Taffy 3, but the other supporting escort carrier groups, Taffy's 1 and 2, they also began diverting all available aircraft to attack the Japanese. And this is, of course, all again from the battle, showing battleship Yamato. So these Taffies were not equipped for, again, anti-ship combat, but they were primarily equipped with a high explosive ammunition, which was great for land assaults. Now, what happened is even though it wasn't the right ammunition, just by dropping anything and just doing strafing runs, Taffy 3 with support actually made it Kurita convinced that he was fighting a much, much, much larger force in the main fleet, and was actually getting more pushback than he had realized. And so that meant that with this, as you can see here in this chart, it pretty much was a general melee. No one knew actually what was going on, it seemed like, but it did cause enough damage on the Japanese fleet that they did decide to eventually withdraw. And so with that, there was also a couple other things that happened during this part of the engagement, in that one of them is that here the Gambier Bay, an escort carrier, or excuse me, this is St. Lo. She took a kamikaze strike that day, and here is the Gambier Bay. This is her going, exploding after and taking on gunfire. Now, Gambier Bay became infamous because she was the first and only aircraft carrier of any size to be taken out by battleship rounds, and St. Lo, unfortunately, was the first aircraft carrier ship intentionally hit by a kamikaze. The U.S. did unfortunately lose a few ships. The most famous two were the Samuel B. Roberts, an escort destroyer, and the USS Johnston, which put up the biggest fight, being that she was a Fletcher class destroyer. Both of them went under. They have since been found in almost 20,000 feet of water off of Leyte Gulf, and preserved in remarkable condition. But essentially, the lesson that the Americans learned from that is, if you're under a sudden attack, it does not matter what kind of ammunition you use. If you put up a fierce enough fight and make yourself look bigger than what you are, you're going to eventually win. Now, during this, you're wondering, where was the Third Fleet? Like I said last week, Third Fleet had already taken the bait from the Northern Force, having found it the night before on the 24th of October, 44. And so that morning, they were pretty much in hot pursuit of the Northern Force, which pretty much consists of around 4 aircraft carriers with 100 planes between them. And so with that, like I said, Halsey took the bait. At dawn, he launched his his attack on the northern force, which was actually very successful, as you can see here. The left is the Japanese carrier Zukaku, and they think on the right is Zuiho. Regardless, Zuikaku ended up going down to the bottom, being sunk by Halsey's third fleet, and pretty much that was that. Um, I will say Uzawa, the commander of the Northern Force, did try to attack the Americans first, but they were first taken out by fighters. American fighters before they even got anywhere near the U.S. ships, thanks to the air combat patrols. Now, this is the time toward the end of the Battle off Samar and the Battle off Cape Engano. That's when the famous message from Nimitz had arrived. Because during the whole time when Taffy 3 was taking his punishment, Sprague did send a message to Kincaid saying that they were under attack by a major force. Kincaid was actually surprised because he thought that Task Force 34 had been left there with all the newer battleships, and Kincaid messaged to back to Pearl Harbor. Nimitz was surprised. He also thought that Task Force 34 had been detached and deployed to protect the San Bernardino Strait, and so the infamous message was sent out. It was really just the way it was worded and everything. The question from Nimitz to Halsey was simply, where's Task Force 44? I mean, that was it. But due to the way they padded things for coding purposes, there was both a leading and a trailing phrase that padded the main message, which was at the center. Now, these were supposed to be cut off as they would have been separated from the main part of the message by double consonants. Now, when it got to Halsey, there was a mistake from the radio room in which the leading part of the message got cut off, but they neglected to cut off the trailing message. So by the time Halsey got the message, it was, where's Task Force 34, double consonant, the world wonders. Now that just sent Halsey into a complete hissy fit, and he raged for about an hour before Arleigh Burke, not Arleigh Burke, but Robert Carney, his chief of staff, said, "What's going?" Basically, got Halsey to shape up. So it was around 11:15, about the time that Kurita was ordering his withdrawal, that Task Force 34 was formed and head down towards Samar. So the battleships would have never made it to off Samar in time. So, and if they did, they just took out a straggler. So with that, that was pretty much ended the main operations for the Battle of Leyte Gulf. There was definitely some lessons that were learned that carry forward into futures, because they knew that there was the following year, toward the end of the year, they had already started planning for the potential operations to defeat the Japanese on their home islands, and at that time they knew that communications had to get better, and part of that was the plans where it was MacArthur would have overall command, and Nimitz would be in charge of the 3 fleets worth of ships that were coming, and that they established that there'll be direct communications between the fleets. Additionally, Halsey's decision to keep lay down the framework for Task Force 34 but not deploy that has been debated for a century, or ever since. I will say that, having seen what Halsey's actual order was, and knowing what what he thought and his aggressiveness. Halsey made what he thought was the right decision. He believed that the uh, Center Force had retreated, and that was enough damage that was no longer an issue. He also believed that his orders from Nimitz gave him the ability, should he choose to seek and should opportunity exist for a naval engagement, that he had free hand to do so. And he also did not understand that the assessment from Mitcher about the Japanese naval air strength, was as bad as it actually was incorrect, and he was also gunning for a fight. So Halsey did what he believed was best. Unfortunately, in hindsight, it does seem like he should have taken a little more caution and could have left the battleships there, but regardless, that's what Halsey's decision was. Unfortunately, it will not be the last bad decision that would cripple him, but that's what happened. Again, the Americans learned some valuable lessons about communications. They also learned that if you don't have the right equipment to go into the fight, just go into the fight and then hope that, just like with holding up, defending yourself, if you make yourself seem bigger and scarier than what they are, they're going to go away and be scared of you. So with that, I hope you liked this, enjoyed it. Definitely going to get more information and a better sense of feel from Hornfisher's book. I do highly recommend, especially for the Battle of Samar, if you're someone who likes those battle counts of ship-on-ship action. So please like this if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. If you know someone who would enjoy it, please share it with them. As always, please be kind and respectful in the comments. And I will say this weekend I did go out and see The Odyssey by Christopher Nolan, and I will be giving you a historian's perspective on that next week, so stay tuned for that. I would say there will be spoilers, but the story is 3,000 years old. You probably heard about it in high school, so yeah, that's kind of hard to spoil a 3,000-year-old story. So until then, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.